War. War never changes.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Camel, and today we are going to be taking a look at a location within the Fallout universe simply known as the Pit, a locale that lives up to the blunt wretchedness of its name. Today's video is sponsored by Bethesda Softworks, a ZeniMax media company, who have asked me to create a lore video for the Pit in preparation of Fallout 76's new and upcoming expedition, which will be taking us back to, of course, the Pit, a location that we have previously visited in 2009 with the Fallout 3 DLC of the same name. Now, all of the Fallout 76 and Fallout 3 footage that you will be seeing here was captured on the PC versions of the aforementioned games. This video is designed to bolster players' knowledge of the Pit, to prepare you so that you know exactly what it is that you will be walking your characters into when you enter the Pit once again in Fallout 76. We will of course be avoiding any story-related spoilers as to ensure that you get to experience that journey for yourself firsthand. For now though, sit back, relax, grab a new Coca-Cola and polish off your best rad suit as you will be needing it. Within the Fallout universe, the city of Pittsburgh was once the hub of steel manufacturing and processing for the United States of America. Unfortunately, with Pittsburgh being the heart of industry and iron within the US, it was too ripe of a fruit to not be plucked. As when the bombs dropped during the Great War in the year 2077, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, along with New York City, were the first targets to be struck, as the enemy aimed to wipe Pittsburgh from the face of the earth in an attempt to hamstring and even completely halt the production of steel for the US forces. This plan worked quite well, and it meant that Pittsburgh was hit harder than just about anywhere else one dare name. On that fateful morning, on the 23rd of October 2077, just as the cold of the previous night was being lifted by the sun's apricity, the townsfolk of Pennsylvania went about their lives, the factories churning with industry, fire, and iron. Just as another normal day was sprouting in the late AM of the forenoon, from the silent quotidian sky, an accursed chorus of great plutonium chords was struck. In a cataclysmic crescendo, atomic hellfire spilled from the heavens, savagely sculpting Pittsburgh into a now disfigured, post-apocalyptic poster child. What was once the city of Pittsburgh is now changed into the Pit, named as such by the surviving locals to better reflect its dreadful circumstances. The foundations of the metropolis were sundered, buildings warped and broken from their roots, bricks and rebar lay rent and twisted. Roads were ripped up like old carpet, train tunnels shattered like fluorescent glass tubes. Pittsburgh, a city once of steel and prosperity, is now a city of rust and wounds, the Pit. To this very day, blue skies are an alien concept within the Pit, as the scratched firmament eternally glows a hideous and hazardous burnt amber. Furnaces within the factory still rage, molten rivers roil and course from crucible to press. Fires throughout the streets howl hotly too. Wild, untamed pyrotechnic poxes litter this urban wasteland. In fact, it is said that the city still burns from the initial bomb drops. Fires that never extinguish, never let up, never burn out. They simply rage unending like the gates of hell. But oh, how the brimstone of Hades' portcullis would be a paradise compared to what the Pit now is. While the Fallout universe is set in a rather familiar post-apocalyptic wasteland, the Pit makes Appalachia look like the Garden of Eden, as there is nothing natural about the pit. It's a horrific portrait of humanity's make. If the evil witch in Fallout story is mankind's reckless conquest to abuse science for power, then the pit is its seething cauldron. All manner of minutiously vile scientific fundamentals have been violated and released, like a plutonium potion from an atomic Pandora's box of pollution. When the city was struck by the hailstorm of enriched fission nuclear warheads, debris and detritus of all known elements was thrown into the atmosphere. Harsh chemicals from massive manufacturing facilities vaporized and spread like mist on a Scottish moor. Toxins of unidentified periodic foundation spewed and spread through the atmosphere, like a wicked spell cast upon a village from an outlandish folk fable. Deathly and hexed pollution became the very air itself. Isotopes of unknown and unnatural formation flung afar, fused in fission and fusion, a smelting pot of ungodly chemistry was set in reaction. The radiation levels throughout the pit are present in every molecule. The pit's source of water, the Monongahela River, is contaminated so badly with mutagenic agents and dangerous carcinogens that drinking such an unspeakably tainted liquid is beyond the thought of even the wildest wastelander. This doomed and befouling domino effect of chemical and physical catastrophe has left the pit as one of the most unwelcoming environments for survival in its own unique way. Vegetation is nothing more than the scarred brown skeletons of what were once shrubs and bushes, as green is now a foreign color in the pit, unless it's seen in volatile bubbling vats of vile seeping crags and putrescent sludge ponds of a fluorescent vomitous viridian. The chemical building blocks behind such an unnatural sight one can only shudder at. The fauna is also few and far between, although the rat roaches seem to be doing just fine. Yet, despite all of this, there are survivors, groups of people who still call the pit home. Although things are most certainly not peachy, as over the following decades after the Great War, children of the pit would be born with deformities such as cancerous growths or vestigial limbs. And as the years passed, nearly the entire population of the pit became afflicted with genetic diseases and mutations caused by the noxious air and polluted river waters. The city had quite literally undergone a chaotic transformation. Well, the remaining civility of the survivors fell into chaos alongside their home. Ultra-aggressive raider gangs of cannibals and worse became the dominant power and established their own spheres of control within the safer hubs of the pit. These violent raider gangs amalgamated and formed into a singular raider faction known as the Fanatics, who use conscripted and enslaved workers to build upon the ruin that is this city. And with its past in steel production and the complete undoing of the entire metropolis, it is now an ample and resourceful grounds for harvesting raw materials from the shattered cityscape and molding them into new, usable metallic supplies, making the pit actually a resource-rich location, albeit a deadly one. There are, however, some do-gooders, such as the Union, who resist such raider groups as the Fanatics. The Union is attempting to keep their stake when it comes to the pit, reclaiming their home and saving their people, although pushing against such a brutal force as a massive conglomeration of relentless raiders such as the Fanatics is an uphill battle, and one that you will be helping in. To really put the dire reality of the pit into perspective, being enslaved by a raider gang is not the worst fate that could befall you. Far from it, in fact, although I do not want to paint such a fate with a gilded brush either, As we have established, the majority of the pit's location is entirely toxic, in more ways than can be mentioned. Because of this, raider overlords force their enslaved inferiors to work in the most heinous of conditions. No one lasts long in such a setting, as soon enough the fiendish concoction of radiation and hazardous industrial pollution eats away at any living thing that is unfortunate enough to be exposed to it. These poor souls, these workers, their cellular structures begin to break down. Rashes, lesions, and weeping wounds spread like a plague through their bodies, tearing down all known human well-being and hope. Their immune systems fail, their flesh flakes and falls from their bodies. A truly awful fate, but in all honesty, it's not the worst that the pit has to offer. This enslaved workforce die a slow, painful death, either eaten alive by the very atmosphere that they are forced to work within, or they are killed by their raider overlords when they are unable to physically function, and therefore no longer serve any purpose to their raider masters. And while it might sound strange, the lucky ones become ghouls, which is a cursed fate to be sure, but better than the other possibilities. And what are these, you're wondering? Well, there are groups of people known as wild men who are also inhabitants of the pit. They have suffered severe neurological damage after being exposed to the infected waters and poisoned sky of what was once Pittsburgh. And while they may look human and dress like humans, they are in fact abhuman. These wild men suffer from a disease known as troglodyte degeneration contagion, a pathogen birthed out of the uniquely avernal conditions of the pit. These wild men are cannibalistic, their emotions have no control. They are primal, savage beings who kill, eat, and breed. They have no hierarchy, they are simply rabid animals. And as bad as that fate is, even worse is the full genetic eclipse of the troglodyte degeneration contagion, which is also known as TDC. About 20% of adults who contract this disease will rapidly devolve into hunchbacked, animal-like creatures known as trogs. Sadly, 100% of newborns will devolve into a feral trog within a few weeks after being birthed. Interestingly though, troglodyte degeneration contagion is the result of intensely concentrated ambient radiation exposure combined with the unique industrial toxins and pollutants in the region that surround what was once Pittsburgh. And TDC cannot be contracted by contact with the infected, which is comforting in one sense to know, but in another sense it's truly terrifying. Just breathing the air in the pit will infect you with this disease. You'll slowly break apart on a cellular level, hoping for death, hoping to become a ghoul, hoping to not become a wild man, or even worse, to become a trog. Now these trogs are hideous monsters. While their flesh is like ours, they crawl on all fours and they can spit acid. Their unsightly form speaks 1,000 words as to the true rotten depths of this malediction of mutation. Like I said earlier, the lucky ones become ghouls. The unlucky ones are cursed to live as a transmogrified horror, a trog. They act like rabid animals, tearing flesh from bone and feasting upon the remains. They are fearsome, genuinely scary, they are not to be taken lightly, and they are also very strong. But the trogs are just another notch in the post-apocalyptic belt of the pit. You will be facing off against all of the unbelievable creations we have mentioned in this video. A fractured metropolis, caustic air, radiation levels that would make a radroach sweat, foul humans and foul monsters and everything in between. So be sure to bring your best weapons, a ton of ammunition, your strongest rad-resistant gear, a hell of a lot of meds, and your bravest face. You will be needing all of it. The Pit is deadly corrupt in every sense of the word, but the Union are trying to save their city and their people, and they need our help. So I hope you did enjoy this video. I hope you have learned something new. I've been Camel, and I will see you in Fallout 76 in the Pit.